A reading from the book of Genesis. The Lord God formed man out of the clay of the ground, and blew into his nostrils the breath of life. And so man became a living being. Then the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and placed there the man whom he had formed. Out of the ground the Lord God made various trees grow that were delightful to look at, and good for food, with the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now the serpent was the most cunning of all the animals that the Lord God had made. The serpent asked the woman, "Did God really tell you not to eat from any of the trees in the garden?" The woman answered the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. It is only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, 'You shall not eat it, or even touch it, lest you die.'" But the serpent said to the woman, "You certainly will not die. No, God knows well that the moment you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, who know what is good and what is evil." The woman saw that the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eyes, and desirable for gaining wisdom. So she took some of it and ate it. And she also gave some of the fruit to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Well, here we are, another Lent. It's a time for us to, give up chocolate, to halfway through my hamburger realize, oh no, it's Friday, and feel guilty about it for the rest of the week. Am I right? Right? We've all done it. And I think if you ask most people what Lent is all about, this might be the answer that they give you. But yet I think they would also grant to you that there's something deeper to this season of Lent that the Church asks us to celebrate each year. And so I think we should reflect on this as we begin our Lenten journey of these 40 days. What might these deeper reasons be? And I think this reading from Genesis is certainly a way of helping us to reflect on what some of those reasons may be. God gives our first parents, Adam and Eve, everything they could possibly desire, signified by the garden. He even gives them all of the fruit that they could ever possibly want. All of it's good to eat, except for the fruit in the middle of the garden, the tree of knowledge, the tree of good and evil. And so, what does this tell us? This tells us that God also, even though He created man and woman completely free, He doesn't make them His slaves. God allows us to choose. He doesn't lord it over us, per se. And so, we see a fine example of this. Adam and Eve choose freely to turn away from God, to turn away from what is truly good. And I think this is what we are to reflect on this Lenten season. This is what happens when I deliberately turn away from God and I make myself the judge of everything that is good and evil. And I think that Lent is supposed to help us to figure out, okay, Lord, I need help with this. I can't do this all on my own. And so the Church gives us 3 practices that we can do this Lenten season. The first one we heard about from Father Jim the other day, fasting. And what might fasting be for, other than to help me to identify those attachments in my life? To help me to slow down, to look deliberately at how I'm relating with God and with all of the things that God has given to me. the church also gives us the practice of almsgiving. And almsgiving helps us to certainly identify the face of Christ in the poor, but also it's another way of looking at all of those things that God has given me and reminding myself that they're not mine. I'm merely a steward of all of these things. And this should especially be a reminder for us, those of us who profess the evangelical counsel of poverty. How am I being a good steward of those things that the community gives me, that I have been given by generous benefactors? How am I being a good steward of these things? And the last one is prayer. And prayer should be the cement that sort of keeps our relationship with God together. But I think Lent is supposed to invite us into a deeper type of prayer, to sort of up the ante a bit. And so, by prayer, we can grow closer to Christ in a way that maybe we haven't done in a while. Maybe we've been struggling with certain other areas of our lives. Lent asks us to return to God in prayer, where we'll find Him waiting, watching. So, Lent certainly may be a certain list of obligations. And as good as fulfilling obligations can be, I think we should take the moment to look more closely at what Lent is inviting us into. We should open our hearts and be willing to deepen our relationship with God through our practices of fasting, almsgiving, and prayer. By doing this, we'll prepare ourselves really to walk with the Lord in His passion at the end of these 40 days, and ultimately to live with Him in the resurrection. So, let's recommit ourselves these 40 days. Let's give the Lord a yes. A yes that is unconditional. And let's open our hearts to more openly and more freely receive what He has to give us.